Why does a city built on water, with no roads and no cars, still function as a living metropolis? The Grand Canal runs nearly 4 kilometers through its heart, and gondolas, vaporettos, and delivery boats replace every street. Palaces from 5 centuries line its banks, their marble facades resting on wooden piles driven into mud. A city that should not exist has survived for over 1,500 years. The answer begins with one canal that became a road, a highway, and a main street all at once. At the pier, rows of black gondolas wait with their ornate metal prows pointing toward the water. Each one is rowed, not motored, by a licensed gondolier who has studied the city's canals for years. Nearby, vaporettos carry commuters and goods along the same route that merchant ships used for centuries. The Grand Canal bends in a great S shape through the city, dividing it into 2 halves. Along its edges, the buildings shift from ochre to rose to cream, each facade a record of the family that built it. At the entrance to the Grand Canal, the Basilica di Santa Maria della Salute rises on a narrow spit of land. The church was begun in 1681, after a plague killed nearly a third of Venice's population in 1630. The Senate promised a church if the city survived, and they kept their word. Its octagonal dome dominates the skyline, visible from nearly every point along a canal. The building rests on over 1 million wooden piles driven into the lagoon floor, petrified timber that has held for 3 centuries. From the Salute, the Grand Canal opens toward the basin where Venice meets the open lagoon. Across the water, the campanile of St. Mark's rises above the rooftops, a brick tower standing nearly 99 meters tall. St. Mark's Basilica sits beside it, its domes dating to the 11th century, when Venetian merchants brought back relics from the eastern Mediterranean. As the sun drops, the canal turns gold, and the white stone of the Salute catches the last light. Boats still cross here, just as they have for 1,000 years. St. Mark's Square is the only square Venice calls piazza. The campanile beside it rises 98 meters, and the basilica has stood here since the 11th century. The Doge's palace stands at the edge of St. Mark's Square, its facade a pattern of pink and white marble arches in the Venetian Gothic style. Construction began in 1340, and for centuries this was the seat of government, the law courts, and the Doge's residence all at once. The piazzetta beside the palace opens directly onto the lagoon waterfront, where visiting dignitaries once arrived by boat. The brick campanile towers over both, rebuilt in 1912 after it collapsed without warning a decade earlier. Just beyond the Doge's palace, a narrow enclosed bridge crosses a small canal. This is the Bridge of Sighs, built in 1600 from white Istrian stone. It connected the palace interrogation rooms to the prison, and prisoners crossed it after sentencing. The grilles in its windows offered a last glimpse of the lagoon. Lord Byron gave the bridge its name in the 19th century, imagining the sighs of condemned men looking out at freedom. Today, gondolas glide beneath it, carrying visitors instead of inmates. The Rialto Bridge is the oldest crossing of the Grand Canal, completed in 1591. Built from Istrian stone, it arches over the narrowest point of the waterway. Shops line both sides of its span, a design that helped pay for the construction through rents collected from merchants. A gondola passes beneath the arch, its oar dipping into turquoise water. For centuries, this bridge was the only way to cross the Grand Canal on foot. At night, the stone glows under lamps, and the shops stay open late, selling jewelry and souvenirs to the crowds above. Away from the Grand Canal, the city narrows. These smaller waterways are called rhi in Venetian, and they wind between brick and stucco buildings that lean toward each other across the water. Venice is built on 118 small islands, linked by more than 400 bridges. A single gondola slides through, steered by a licensed gondolier who knows every turn and every shallow. Cannaregio is the northernmost district of Venice. The Fondamenta di Cannaregio runs along the Canale di Cannaregio, a wide waterway lined with brick buildings and pedestrian paths. This district also contains the Jewish ghetto, established in 1516, the first of its kind in Europe. The Ponte dell'Accademia is one of only 4 bridges that span the Grand Canal. It was first built in 1854, and the current wooden structure dates to the 20th century. On the far side lies Dorsoduro, a district known for its art museums, including the Accademia Gallery, which houses centuries of Venetian painting under one roof. The Rio di San Trovaso cuts through Dorsoduro in southern Venice. Along its banks sits the Squero di San Trovaso, one of the last working gondola boatyards in the city. South of central Venice, the island of Giudecca faces the city across a wide stretch of lagoon. The Chiesa del Santissimo Redentore rises on its shore. Designed by Andrea Palladio, as a votive church after the plague of 1576. Every July, Venetians celebrate the Festa del Redentore by building a temporary bridge of boats across the waterway, linking Giudecca to the main city for a single night of fireworks and feasting. San Michele is Venice's cemetery island. Its church, designed by Mauro Cadusi in 1469, was the first Renaissance church built in Venice. Murano lies north of Venice, a cluster of 7 small islands linked by bridges. A black and white striped lighthouse marks its entrance. Since 1291, when Venice moved its glass furnaces here to reduce fire risk in the main city, Murano has been the center of European glassmaking. The tradition continues in workshops that still blow glass by hand. Murano's canals are lined with colorful buildings in ochre, coral, and gold. The Ponte de Mezzo, a stone arch bridge, spans the main waterway. Moored boats cluster along the banks. For over 700 years, this island has produced glass that traveled across Europe. Chandeliers, mirrors, and beads that once served as currency in African trade routes. Burano sits 7 kilometers from Venice, its houses painted in impossible colors: mustard, indigo, scarlet, emerald. Fishermen began the tradition to spot their homes through lagoon fog. The campanile of San Martino leans visibly. Burano is also known for lace, stitched by hand in patterns passed through generations. Small boats line the canal edges, tied to wooden posts. The water reflects purple, orange, and blue facades, refreshed by each generation of owners. Burano's population has shrunk over the decades, but the colors remain, a fishing village that refuses to fade into the gray of the lagoon. Torcello was the first settled island in the lagoon. Its cathedral dates to 639. Once home to 20,000, today only a few dozen remain. The Giardini della Biennale hosts the Venice Biennale, founded in 1895. The gardens hold 29 national pavilions. Castello, the largest of Venice's 6 districts, surrounds them. The Venetian arsenal was founded in 1104. At its peak, it employed over 2,000 workers, making it one of Europe's earliest large-scale industrial complexes. Poveglia is a small island in the Venetian lagoon, abandoned and closed to the public. Its brick bell tower still stands, but the buildings around it are crumbling and overgrown. For centuries, the island served as a quarantine station during plague outbreaks. The sick were sent here to recover or die. In the 20th century, it became a mental hospital. The last patients left in 1968, and no one has lived on Poveglia since. The lagoon reclaims it slowly, salt water creeping into the walls. The Lido shields the lagoon from the Adriatic. The Tempio Votivo, a war memorial, stands on this sandbar, the barrier that lets Venice exist at all.